The first thing I noticed about my best friend's fiancé was not his tailored gray suit, or the expensive watch on his wrist, or the way the hostess at the restaurant straightened when he gave his name. It was his eyes. Mara touched my arm and said, "Ethan, this is Daniel." Daniel Pierce stood from the booth with the calm confidence of a man who had never had to wonder whether he belonged in a room. He smiled. He offered his hand. But when he looked at me, the smile stopped before it reached his eyes. He looked at me like he already knew the ending of a story I had never dared to tell. "So you're Ethan," he said. "Not nice to meet you. Not Mara has told me so much. Just that." I shook his hand because Mara was watching, because my palms knew how to hold a hammer steadier than they knew how to hold a secret, and because I had spent 14 years pretending I was only her friend. "Yeah," I said.
"I'm Ethan."
Daniel's grip tightened for half a second. "The one who fixes old houses," he said. Mara laughed softly. "He fixes more than houses. That was the problem." She said it like it was a joke. Daniel heard it like a confession. "Before I tell you what happened at that table, if you've ever loved someone quietly because you were afraid the truth would cost you the one person you could not lose, stay with me. Like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you would do if the person you loved asked you to meet the person they planned to marry." Mara and I met at 22 in the basement of a flooded public library in Richmond, Virginia. She had a flashlight under her chin, wet hair on her cheeks, and the kind of stubborn optimism that made strangers carry heavier boxes just because she asked. When my mother got sick, Mara sat with her during chemo while I took repair jobs to keep the mortgage alive. When Mara's father died suddenly, I drove 6 hours through a snowstorm because she called and said, "I don't want to be brave tonight." When her first bookstore lease fell apart, I built shelves in the new location for 3 weekends and pretended my hands did not shake when she fell asleep against my shoulder on the floor. By 36, I restored old houses for a living while Mara ran a children's literacy nonprofit called Lantern and Page. She built safe rooms out of books. I built safe rooms out of wood. What we did not talk about was the night 6 years earlier at Juniper House. Juniper House belonged to Mara's Aunt Lillian. It sat beside Lake Moro with peeling columns, warped floors, and a kitchen window that caught the morning light. After Mara's father died, I helped her pack boxes there. On the last night, I wrote her a letter. I wrote that I loved her. I wrote that I did not know when friendship had become home, only that every room in my life felt wrong when she was not in it. I wrote that I was terrified to give her the letter because my father had once called his affair following his heart, and I had grown up watching love become the excuse for betrayal. I promised myself I would never become a man who ruined a safe place because he wanted more. Then I folded the letter, sealed it, and hid it behind a loose panel in the old pantry because cowardice sometimes dresses itself as restraint. Years passed. She dated men who were kind enough, wrong enough, or temporary enough that I could survive them. I dated women who saw the empty chair at every table and eventually stopped asking who it belonged to. Mara and I kept being Mara and Ethan, the safest thing in each other's lives. Then, one Tuesday in September, she came into my workshop wearing a cream sweater and a diamond ring. "Don't look like that," she said before I spoke. I lowered the chisel in my hand. "Like what?" "Like you just swallowed a nail." I forced my eyes away from the ring.
"I'm surprised."
"I know." She tucked her hand under her opposite arm, as if hiding the ring could soften it. "Daniel proposed last night." "Daniel Pierce," I said, because saying his full name gave me a second to breathe. "You met him once at the hospital fundraiser." I saw the back of his head near the silent auction. "He's good, Ethan." I nodded too quickly. "I'm sure he is." Her smile trembled in a way most people would have missed. I hated that I did not miss it. "I want you to meet him properly," she said. "Dinner Friday. Please don't make it weird." She smiled then, relieved, and I hated myself for making her relief necessary. That was how I ended up at Larkin's, sitting across from Daniel Pierce while Mara talked too fast about the menu. "Restoration must be difficult," he said, "knowing what to preserve and what to tear out." "It depends on the structure," I said, "and the owner." "That too." Mara glanced between us. You two are already talking like a permit hearing. Daniel smiled at her, and for a moment I saw that he did care about her. He reached for her hand without making a show of it. He noticed she had not eaten and nudged the bread plate closer. He knew her white wine preference. He was not a monster, which made everything harder. Halfway through dinner, Mara excused herself to take a call from one of her tutors. The moment she stepped away, Daniel leaned back and studied me without the costume of politeness. "How long have you been in love with her?" he asked. The restaurant noise seemed to drop into a tunnel. I looked toward the hallway where Mara had disappeared. "You don't know me well enough to ask that." "No," he said, "but I know her well enough to ask why she says your name like it's a place she can still go." I pushed my chair back an inch. "If this is some kind of warning, it's a question. It's none of your business. I'm marrying her. That makes the things she cannot let go of my business." I should have denied it. A clean lie would have been kinder to everyone. But Daniel's eyes did not look jealous in the childish way I expected. They looked tired, almost sad. "You asked me here to measure me?" I said. "Mara asked you here," he said. "I agreed because I wanted to see whether I had imagined it." "Imagined what?" He looked at the diamond ring on the table where Mara's fingers had rested a minute before. "That when she said yes to me, a part of her was waiting for you to object." Mara returned before I could answer. She slid into the booth with an apology and a bright smile that belonged to someone trying to keep two men from turning dinner into weather. Daniel stood to let her pass. I looked down at my water glass and saw my own face bent and distorted. After dinner, Daniel walked to the valet stand to get his car. Mara stayed beside me under the awning while rain stitched the street silver. "You were quiet," she said. "I was listening." "To Daniel or to your exit plan?" I laughed because she expected me to. "He's impressive. That sounds like something you say about a hotel lobby." "He's attentive, smart, stable." She watched me carefully. "But, no but, Ethan." The way she said my name almost broke me. I looked at the ring, then at the rain. "Do you love him?" I asked. Her breath caught. "That is not a simple question." "It should be." "No," she said, and there was heat under her voice now. "That's what people say when they want life to be cleaner than it is." Daniel's car pulled up before I could apologize. He opened the passenger door for her. She hesitated, still looking at me, as if waiting for one honest sentence. I gave her a nod instead. "Good night, Mara." Something closed in her face. She got into the car. 2 days later she called and asked for a favor, because the universe has a cruel sense of timing. "Aunt Lillian's house has to pass inspection before we can use it for the engagement weekend," she said. "Daniel's family wants something small and meaningful before we choose a wedding date." I told him Juniper House matters to me. "The porch is unsafe, the back stairs are worse, and I trust you more than any contractor alive." I stood in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, staring at the rain streaking down the window. "Mara, are you sure Daniel wants me there?" A pause. "I want you there." That sentence undid every sensible objection. Saturday morning, I drove to Juniper House with my toolbox in the back of my truck and old ghosts waiting on the porch. Mara came out wearing jeans, work boots, and a green flannel shirt I had patched years ago. My chest tightened. "You still have that?" I asked. She looked down, suddenly shy. "It's good luck." Daniel heard that. Of course he did. At noon, Evelyn gathered everyone in the dining room and unfolded a set of glossy papers. "I know this is sentimental," she said, "but sentiment can be honored in practical ways. Daniel's firm has a client interested in lakefront properties. They would preserve the exterior facade, build luxury cottages, and name the common garden after Lillian." Mara went still. "What?" Daniel looked uncomfortable. "It is only an option." "You talked to a developer about my aunt's house?" "I talked to people who could help you avoid sinking your savings into a structure that may not be salvageable." I felt Mara's eyes flick to me, but I kept quiet. This was not my fight unless she made it mine. Evelyn softened her voice. "Sweetheart, you run a nonprofit. You understand resources. Imagine what the sale could do for your programs. Mara folded her arms. Juniper House was where Aunt Lillian taught kids to read when schools were closed. She wanted it used again. And it can be honored, Daniel said. Not every dream has to survive in its original shape. Mara looked at the cracked plaster, the water-stained ceiling, the old bookcases leaning against the wall. Some do. Daniel found me later on the back porch while Mara walked by the lake. He held 2 coffees and looked more tired than polished. I did not know Evelyn would bring the papers today, he said. But you knew there were papers. Yes. I took the cup but did not drink. She deserves to hear options from you before your mother presents them like a verdict. I know. Daniel stared out at Mara, small against the gray lake. Do you think I don't see what this place does to her? She walks in here and becomes someone I can't reach. Maybe you're trying to reach the wrong version of her. He looked at me. And you know the right one? I know the one who stayed up all night writing grant applications because a 4th grader told her books made him feel less stupid. I know the one who keeps birthday cards from kids in a shoebox. I know the one who hates being managed. Daniel's jaw tightened. You speak like a man with a claim. No, I said. I speak like a friend. He studied me again with that same unsettling look from the restaurant. Then he reached inside his coat and removed a cream envelope, yellowed at the edges. My lungs forgot how to work. Mara's name was on the front in my handwriting. I found it in the pantry panel during the inspection, Daniel said. It fell out when the carpenter checked for moisture damage. I did not open it. I stared at the envelope like it was a live wire. Why are you showing me this? Because a sealed letter hidden in a house tells me more than most conversations. You should give it to her. I think you should. I shook my head. That letter is 6 years old. Then it should be harmless. It isn't. Daniel's expression changed. Not victory. Not cruelty. Pain. That is what I thought, he said. I put the coffee down before I dropped it. You have no right to use that against her. I'm not using it against her. I'm asking whether I am about to marry a woman whose heart is divided because 2 people were too afraid to tell the truth. Anger rose in me because it was easier than shame. Mara said yes to you. Respect that. I am trying to. His voice sharpened for the first time. But respect is not pretending I don't see her flinch every time someone asks about setting a date. Before I could answer, Mara called my name from the yard. Daniel slid the envelope back into his coat. Near sunset, Mara found me in the pantry, kneeling near the repaired panel as if guilt had gravity. You're mad, she said.
I'm focused.
No, you're doing that thing where every sentence gets shorter because you think feelings are a building code violation. I almost smiled. Then I saw Daniel through the window, talking with his mother near her car, and the smile died. Mara, do you want this house saved? She blinked. Yes. Then say that, clearly, to Daniel, to Evelyn, to me, to everyone. I did. You said some dreams should survive. That's not the same as a plan. Her face tightened. Do not contractor voice me. I'm serious. So am I. She stepped closer. Everyone keeps asking what I want like they're waiting to tell me why it won't work. Daniel thinks saving the house is emotional. Evelyn thinks selling is generous.
Ben thinks I'm exhausted.
And you? I what? You look at me like you're already grieving something you never had the nerve to name. The words landed so close to the truth that I stood up too fast and hit my shoulder on the shelf. Mara reached for me. Ethan, I'm fine. No, you're not. Her hand hovered between us, then dropped. The small withdrawal hurt more than the bump. I should have told her then. Not everything, not while she was engaged, but enough to stop the damage. Instead I said, I can give you a repair plan by Monday. She stared at me for a long moment. Of course you can. She walked out before I could call her back. At 1:17 in the morning, I heard footsteps. I opened my door and found Mara in the hallway, holding a flashlight and looking like every memory I had failed to outgrow. The kitchen ceiling is dripping, she whispered. After I patched the leak, I climbed down soaked and dusty. She handed me a towel. Our fingers brushed, and neither of us moved. Daniel is a good man, she said. I know. I need you to believe that.
Ido.
Her eyes shone in the dim kitchen light. Then why does it feel like you're saying goodbye to me? I said none of that. I don't want to be in the way, I said. Mara's face crumpled for half a second before she controlled it. You were never in the way. You were the road. The kitchen went silent except for the drip in the bowl. Daniel's voice came from the doorway. Mara. We turned. He stood there in a t-shirt and pajama pants. Hair mussed, face unreadable. I stepped back from her at once, though nothing had happened. The ceiling was leaking, I said. I can see that. Mara lifted her chin. Ethan fixed it. Daniel looked from her to me, that knowing look again, but now it had a wound inside it. I'm going back to bed, he said. The next morning, everything changed. Daniel asked me to walk with him before breakfast. We went down to the dock while mist lifted from the lake. He carried the envelope again. I opened it, he said. My hands curled. You said you didn't. I know. I'm not proud of it. For a moment all I could hear was water touching wood. Did you show her?
No.
What did it say? He gave me a humorless look. You know what it said. I looked across the lake because looking at him might have made me do something I regretted. Daniel said, You wrote that loving her made you feel like a thief because she trusted you. My throat closed. You wrote that if she ever found someone who could give her a calm life, you would step aside. You wrote that she deserved someone who chose her out loud. Stop. Why? His voice broke on the word. Because I am trying to be that man, and somehow I still feel like I arrived after the house was already built. I turned on him. Then don't marry her. The sentence shocked us both. Daniel looked down at the envelope. I love her. Then love her enough to ask if she wants the life you're building. And you? He asked. Do you love her enough to answer if she asks you the truth? I had no answer that did not condemn me. We walked back in silence. At the porch steps, Mara waited with 2 coffee mugs. She looked from my face to Daniel's and set both mugs down. What happened? Daniel said, We need to talk. Mara's eyes hardened. Then talk where I can hear it. Neither of us moved. Her voice dropped. I am so tired of being discussed like a property line. Daniel flinched. I deserved to. I said, You're right. Daniel took out the envelope. Mara went very still. What is that? A letter, Daniel said. Ethan wrote it years ago. I found it in the pantry. Mara looked at me, confused first, then hurt. You wrote me a letter? Yes. And you hid it? Yes. Daniel held it out to her, but she did not take it. Did you read it? She asked him. He closed his eyes. Yes. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Mara took 1 step back. Both of you leave. Mara, I said. No, her voice shook, but it did not weaken. Daniel, you read something that was not yours. Ethan, you buried something that should have been mine to answer. I am not standing between 2 men who think my life is a test of their restraint. She pulled the ring from her finger. Not dramatically, not like a movie. Slowly, with tears in her eyes and anger in her hands. She held it out to Daniel. I'm not giving this back because of Ethan, she said. I'm giving it back because when you found a secret, you investigated it instead of trusting me with the truth. And because I said yes while hoping certainty would grow later. That was unfair to you. Daniel stared at the ring like it had become heavier than metal. I wanted to be enough, he said. You are enough, she whispered. Just not for me. And I am sorry I tried to make gratitude look like love. He took the ring. His face looked older. Then she turned to me. And you, she said. I braced myself. You don't get an answer today. Not to whatever is in that letter. Not to whatever you think 6 years of silence earned you. I am going into town with Ben. When I come back, I want a repair estimate for the house and no more emotional ambushes disguised as noble sacrifice. She walked past us into the house. Daniel gave a short, broken laugh. There she is. I looked at him. He wiped his eyes with his thumb. That's the woman I wanted. I just kept trying to make her life quiet enough that she wouldn't need to be that strong. Around noon, Daniel came outside. My mother will still arrive at 3, he said. So will the caterer and half the people who think this is an engagement brunch. Cancel it. Mara tried. Evelyn is telling people it is a misunderstanding. I set down my pencil. A misunderstanding? Daniel's mouth tightened. My mother believes pressure creates clarity. That explains a lot. He almost smiled. I deserve that. No, I said. You deserve blame for what you did. Not for wanting to be loved. He looked toward the lake. You're more generous than I would be. I'm not feeling generous. Good. Then listen anyway. He held out the envelope. I resealed it badly. I know. But it should come from you if she ever wants it. I did not take it. She may never want it, I said. Then burn it. But stop letting paper be braver than you. He placed it on the porch rail and walked to his car. Mara returned after 2 with Ben and a box of printer paper. She saw the envelope on the porch rail, then saw me sitting away from it with my hands open. I didn't read it again, I said stupidly. A tiny exhausted smile crossed her face and vanished. Very impressive. I deserved that. You deserve worse. I know. She looked at the envelope. Is it true that I wrote it? Yes. That you loved me? The question finally stood between us, plain and living. I swallowed. Yes. Her breath left her. She nodded once, as if confirming a diagnosis she had suspected for years. And now? She asked. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my wrists. You're ending an engagement today, I said. You're hurt. You're angry. I won't ask you to step from his promise into mine like you're crossing a street. That is not what I asked. I know. I forced myself to hold her gaze. Yes, now too. But my answer does not come with a demand. Tears filled her eyes. I waited so long for you to say one selfish thing. I'm trying to say one honest thing instead. She looked away toward the line of cars beginning to appear on the gravel drive. Evelyn's sedan led them like a polished accusation. Then be honest about the house, she said. I handed her the legal pad. It can be saved. It needs roof work, foundation reinforcement, wiring, plumbing, permits, money, and months. It will not make you rich, but it can become what you want. What do I want? A reading retreat, a training space for your tutors, summer weekends for kids who think lake houses are for other people. She pressed the pad to her chest. You remembered. I remember everything that matters to you. The first guests reached the porch before she could answer. The room noticed. Whispers moved faster than the caterers. Evelyn clinked a glass near the dining room archway. Thank you all for being here to celebrate Daniel and Mara, and to honor the future of this beautiful property. Mara stepped forward. Evelyn, please don't. But Evelyn had already lifted a glossy rendering from the table. It showed Juniper House cleaned, polished, and surrounded by luxury cottages. A future that preserves the past, Evelyn said, while creating opportunities for Mara's wonderful work. Mara's face went white. Daniel crossed the room. Mother, stop. Evelyn looked genuinely startled. Daniel, people came all this way. Yes, he said, and they deserve the truth. There is no engagement brunch. A collective breath moved through the room. Evelyn's smile froze. This is not the time. Daniel's voice stayed quiet. It is exactly the time. Mara and I are not getting married. Mara looked at him with surprise and gratitude, but she did not let him carry the whole moment. She stepped beside him, not behind him. I said yes to Daniel because he is a good man and because I wanted a good plan to become love, she said. That was unfair to him and to me. I will not marry someone because a room full of people expects me to continue. Evelyn looked at Mara's bare hand, then at me. I felt half the room follow her gaze. Mara saw it too. Her chin lifted. This is not Ethan's decision, she said. It is mine. This house is also mine. I will not sell it to make grief convenient or generosity marketable. I'm restoring it for children who need a place like this. Someone near the back murmured, with what money? I stepped forward before I could talk myself out of it. Mara looked at me, warning and pleading at the same time. I stopped beside her, leaving space. With a phased repair plan, I said. Volunteer crews for non-structural work. Historic preservation grants. Community donors. My company will handle the porch and west wall at cost. Mara stared at me. I added, if she wants us. She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, something had shifted. Not solved, not healed, but no longer hidden. Daniel said, I'll release the developer from any discussions and make sure the title documents are clean. No fee. Evelyn turned on him. Daniel. He shook his head. I read a letter that wasn't mine. I pushed a future she didn't choose. I won't profit from the apology. The room had nothing to do with that kind of honesty. Simply stood there and absorbed it. Mara looked at Daniel. Thank you. He nodded. Be happy, Mara. Not polite. Happy. That was the closest thing to a blessing I had ever seen a broken engagement become. At sunset, the house was finally quiet. I found Mara on the dock, sitting with her shoes beside her and her bare feet above the water. The envelope lay between us on the boards, unopened by her. Daniel gave it to me, she said. I didn't read it. I sat down a careful distance away. You can. It's yours. Maybe later. She traced the edge of the envelope with one finger. Part of me wants to know exactly what I missed. Part of me is angry that paper got the version of you I needed. I was afraid. I know. That's not an excuse. I know that too. The lake held the sunset in broken orange lines. Across the water, a heron lifted from the reeds and moved like a thought leaving. Mara said, when Daniel proposed, I did not think, I wish this was Ethan. That would be too simple. I thought Daniel is here. Daniel is asking. Daniel knows how to want without apologizing for it. And then I thought of you, and I hated myself for comparing a man's courage to another man's silence. Each word was deserved. I let them land. I'm sorry, I said. She looked at me then. I don't want you sorry because you lost your chance. I want you sorry because you made choices for both of us. I am. Good. She picked up the envelope and held it out. My stomach dropped. You want me to read it? No. I want you to tell me what you would say now without hiding behind who you were 6 years ago. The dock seemed to tilt under me. For once, I did not look away. I love you, I said. I love how you fight for people taught to expect less. I love how you make broken places responsible for becoming useful again. I love you enough to accept that you may need time, distance, or neither from me. Tears slipped down her face. She did not wipe them away. And what do you want? She asked. My old instinct was to give the safest answer. Whatever you want. Whatever hurts least. Whatever lets me stay close. But love that only survives by refusing to want anything is not love. It is fear with manners. I want a chance, I said. Not today as a reward for waiting, and not as the reason your engagement ended. A real chance, when you're ready, to take your hand where people can see and choose you out loud. She breathed in, shaky and deep. That was very selfish, she whispered. I'm learning. A laugh broke through her tears. Then she leaned her shoulder against mine. It was not a kiss. It was not a promise. It was better than both because it was true for that moment and asked nothing more than honesty. We sat there until the last light left the lake. In the weeks that followed, Mara and Daniel had the kind of conversations adults have when the story is over but the consequences are not. He apologized without trying to win her back. She apologized without taking blame for things that were not hers. Evelyn sent one stiff email about logistics and then, surprisingly, a check for Aunt Lillian's literacy fund. Ben claimed it was guilt money. Mara deposited it anyway. I threw myself into Juniper House because would made more sense than longing. Volunteers came on Saturdays. Kids from Lantern and Page painted birdhouses for the future garden. Mara stood on ladders she should not have been standing on, argued with Grant Forms, and brought coffee exactly the way I liked it without mentioning that she remembered. We were careful with each other. Painfully careful. No late-night almost confessions. No using the house as an excuse to play married. No pretending the broken engagement had been a minor inconvenience on the way to us. Some days she was warm. Some days she was distant. I accepted both. I had spent years hiding the truth from her. I did not get to rush how she healed from it. One evening in November, I found her in the pantry, looking at the repaired wall where the loose panel had been. "I read the letter," she said. My hand tightened around the screwdriver. "Oh, you were very dramatic at 30. I was 29. Still dramatic." I smiled because she was smiling, but my heart was in my throat. She leaned against the shelf. I cried. Then I got mad. Then I cried because I was mad. Then I realized the letter was beautiful and also useless because it never had to answer for itself. "That's fair. The man who wrote it loved me like a secret," she said. "The man on the dock asked me for a chance." I set the screwdriver down. "I like the man on the dock better," she said. I forgot how to move. Mara stepped closer. "Ask me to dinner, Ethan." I stared at her like a fool. "Dinner?" "Yes, that thing people do when they are not hiding behind structural repairs." "What night?" "Tonight. I'm covered in dust. I've seen worse. You have plaster in your hair." "I know." I laughed, and then she was laughing too, and the house around us seemed to exhale. Our first real date was at a little Italian place 3 blocks from her bookstore. We sat across from each other like beginners. I reached for her hand halfway through the meal, then stopped and looked at her first. She smiled and turned her palm upward. That small permission nearly undid me. We did not become simple overnight. Real love never turned us into people without history. We argued about pacing, about how much time I spent at the house, about her habit of pretending exhaustion was leadership, about my habit of calling silence patience. But now the arguments had doors and windows. We could enter, leave, and return without burning the place down. By spring, Juniper House opened for its first children's reading weekend. The porch was steady. The west wall was reinforced. The dining room shelves were filled with donated books. Aunt Lillian's photograph hung near the entrance, watching over the chaos with the stern pride of a woman who had expected nothing less. Mara stood on the porch in a yellow dress, greeting families as children spilled across the lawn. I was tightening a final hinge on the front door because old houses enjoy embarrassing men at important moments. She came up beside me. "Still fixing things?" "Only the ones worth saving." She bumped my shoulder. "Careful." That almost sounded like a metaphor. "I would never." A little girl tugged Mara's sleeve and asked where the adventure books were. Mara pointed her inside, then turned back to me with sunlight in her hair and that look I had once been too afraid to meet. "Ethan," she said, "I want you to meet someone." For one wild second, my stomach dropped back into that restaurant booth, to Daniel's hand and Daniel's eyes and the feeling that someone else knew my heart before I did. Then Mara took my hand in front of everyone. "This is my boyfriend," she told the little girl. "He fixed the porch." The little girl considered me seriously. "Did it fall down before?" "Almost," I said. Mara squeezed my hand. "But he caught it in time." Later, when the sun started to set and the last family left with books under their arms, Mara and I stood in the kitchen where the ceiling no longer leaked. She took the old envelope from a drawer and held it over the sink. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded. "I don't need a hidden letter anymore." We lit it with a match and watched the paper curl into flame. Not because the past meant nothing, but because it had finally done its job. It had led us to the truth, and the truth did not need to hide behind a wall. When the last ash cooled, Mara leaned into me. "You know," she said, "for a man who restores houses, you took a very long time to understand that some doors are supposed to open." I kissed her forehead. "I was afraid of what would happen. And now," I looked around the kitchen, at the repaired ceiling, the steady shelves, the woman who had been my friend, my road, my home, and finally my choice. "Now," I said, "I want everyone to know where the door leads. So if you are listening to this and holding back a truth because silence feels safer, ask who that silence is protecting." Sometimes love is not rushing in. Sometimes it is finally speaking with enough respect to let the other person choose. Comment below. Would you rather hear the truth late or never hear it at all?